Alright YouTube, I'm going to be doing a video on setting up your router so that it is safer. This is going to be done on a Linksys. What do we have here? A Linksys wireless G broadband router. Doesn't really matter what router you have, most of these are the same. You can see on the sticker over here it says the login for this is 192.168.0.1. Usually on Linksys it's 192.168.1.1. Excuse me, sorry. It just depends on the brand of router what your login is going to be. This one says the password is admin. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to put the camera on the screen right now, and I'm just going to go through the screens with you so you can get an idea of how you set up a router to make it safer. Okay, hopefully you can see everything. I'm going to go and click on Internet Explorer, and I'll use that browser for the setup. So, let me wait for this thing to log on the internet. This is just a standard connection. When you're talking to your router, you usually want to disconnect the wireless. That if you're using a laptop, you want to disconnect wireless so that it can just do what it needs to do, connected to the wire, and then you can turn on your wireless settings afterwards. This is taking forever to log in, and I'm using a keyboard so I can not have to lean over the camera to do what I need to do. Alright, so let's go over here and log in to the router setting, the logger IP, which was 192.168.0.1. And that's going to bring up the Linksys screen in a minute, hopefully. And then I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what's going on. Really slow. This is a bad router, I'll tell you. This is a defective router, but it's going to be good for the video so you can see how to do the settings. So that's probably why things are really slow. And just sitting here waiting. Okay, there we go. Username, there is no username for a default setting. So I'm going to drop down to the password, which is going to be admin, A-D-M-I-N. And I'll hit enter, and that should bring up the screen. Yeah, this is really slow. Bring up the screen, and then we'll go through the settings together so you can see different ways to make your router safer. Okay, countdown. We're almost there. It's almost there. The router is 1 foot away and it is logging in. There we go. That's the default screen for a Linksys router. So let's see, what do we have here? We have automatic configuration. Yeah, you want that. It's the router name, which they will not even allow you to change, which is very odd. But okay, thank you, Linksys. That's the local IP address. Now I'm not going to change that, but remember when I told you the login was 192.168.0.1? Well, let's change that. Why not? Let's go in there. So everybody's expecting, if they're going to be messing around, you can always figure out what you can usually figure out what the IP address of a router is just by looking, doing a little sniffing. But you could go in here, backspace, and we'll make this 192.168.2.1. I'm going to go down here on the bottom and change this to save settings. Now what it should do, remember we're doing 192.168.1.2.1. So after saving, it should boot me and tell me that it wants me to log in again. Okay, waiting. You can see it says waiting at the top over there. It's talking to the router. It's going to save the settings in a minute. Try to zoom in a little better. Yeah, this is a really bad router. Lots of problems with this thing. That's why it's going in the garbage. It will get there in a minute. Sorry for the delay, but you'll learn a lot from this whole thing if you stick with this video. Wow. Alright, this lovely router, booted me, so let's see if it reset it to 2.1. There it goes, okay. That's why it booted me. Originally it was 192.168.0.1, and now when I do .2.1, AD, let's see if it logs me in. Great, okay, so that's what the big delay was. And you just have to wait about 5 seconds. This should boot me right back to the main screen. Alright, if this doesn't start working, I am going to... unbelievable. Alright, I went over to Firefox. Let's see if I can get this thing to work. Doesn't want to work with Internet Explorer. There we go. Alright, so you can see where I changed over here, 192.168.2.1. That's the login now. So anybody that would come over to this router, if they would look at the sticker and see the login is 192.168.0.1, they'd have no idea how you set this thing up, and that is good for your protection. Alright, so what other settings do we have that we can change on here? Not much on network setup. The very first thing that you want to do is you want to go over to, I believe it is administration. First thing you want to do is you want to change the password, because everybody knows that on a Linksys the password is admin. So let's just change this to, we do ADMIN not. ADMIN not. It's the first thing you want to do. Very important, change your password. That's the smartest thing you can do to protect yourself. The very first thing you should do. Hopefully, when I click save, it's not going to dump me out like Internet Explorer did. Okay, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to type ADMINNOT. And let's see what it did. It logged me in. Very good. Now, what else can we change about this thing? You have setup. Let's go over to setup. Let's go to applications and games. Anything that we can change in here? Let me back up before I give up on this video. ADMINNOT. Okay. What do we have under security? This thing, as you can see, is being very temperamental, but I still want to be able to do the video for you. Let's go to wireless. You get basic wireless. What I would do is well, you have to set it to whatever setting you've got, whatever your system handles. The wireless network name, change the wireless network name. Don't keep it like at home 5032, change that thing. Wireless channel, 6 is the default on all of these. It's the busiest channel. and you definitely don't want to use the busiest channel. So go online, find a sniffer program that will look at all of the, or your cell phone might do it, that will look at all of the wireless things in your area, look at what channel they're on, and you don't want to be on 6. Wireless security, the second most important thing. Now, after you go on and you change your password, go over to security mode, which is disabled, and you want to set it to normally you set it to WPA2 personal. You don't want to go to WPA personal. That is an old thing that's very easy to hack. A lot of these are easy to go into. WEP is worthless. Go to WPA2 personal, and we're going to see something else after that. This is where it becomes important. This is how you stop people from getting into your system. Now, what you've got here is you're locking them out because you're going into a security system. AES, normally you would do AES. Some systems will handle AES, some of them want the other TKIP/AES, but normally you can do AES. And this is the important part now, where you set a password, a shared key. That way, if you didn't have this set, if you had this thing disabled, somebody could get on here and use your Wi-Fi and log on, steal your bandwidth. When you set it up to WPA2, now you can go in here. Let's see if this will even show. Test. Okay. Now let's do, let's do test. You want to use a much better password than that, but when you use a password, the shared key, when you use a password, the first time somebody tries to log into this router, they are going to have to put in a password, and if they don't, they're going to be locked out of the thing. Once it accepts it, then you shouldn't have to put in the password again. Your cell phone or your whatever you're using to connect to the router should remember it. So let's see if this wants to save it or if it's going to boot me out of the system. Invalid key, doesn't like it. It wants something stronger. Very good. Test. Test. Let's see if it takes that. Test. Okay, so Firefox seems to be working a lot better than Internet Explorer on this one. So now that we've set up your security key, which is really important, very important, and you want to set up the password key to this thing also, which we did. Let's go over to wireless MAC filter. This is really important. A lot of people don't use it. A lot of people don't know about it. It's also disabled. Now let's check this thing out. Let's enable it, and you're going to see what's going on here. I'm only going to be limited with so much that I can do here. Now, let's look at what the options are. It's enabled. You can prevent PCs listed from accessing the wireless, or you can permit only PCs that are labeled in the system to access it. So let's go over to here to Edit Mac Filter List, and you get this screen over here, and this is where, say that you've got a cell phone, and your cell phone, you want to be able to log into your internet connection, into your router from your cell phone while you're at home. You'd have to look up the MAC address on your cell phone. You would look up the MAC address on your laptop. You'd look up the MAC address on your PC, and then you would put it in. It's usually something like, let's do some odd number like this and see if it takes it. It probably won't. 12 CD 12 AE 1633. Is that right? I don't even know if it's going to take it. But this is just for example purposes, because this is really important. So once, it says format above. It doesn't like any of that stuff. It wants strictly, see at the top it says format above. It just wants XXXX. This one, usually they want the colon. So let's do 12 CE, 12 CE, 12 CE, 12 CE. And that's just an example. Let's see if it takes it now. That's the important part. This is really important. Even though people say you can crack through this, the more stuff you use to block these people, the better. The MAC address length is incorrect. Okay, I'm going to get out of that because I don't know. Oh, wait, no, I think it wants 10. Let me go put in one more. Yeah, let me put in one more. 1, 2, CD, 1, 2, CD, 1, 2, CD, 1, 2, CD, 1, 2, CD. Let's see if it takes that. Just for example purposes, that's all I want you to get is an idea of how this works. Save settings, is it going to take it? Invalid MAC format. Okay, screw that, we're not going to do that. It doesn't really matter though. The important thing is you have to look up your MAC address and find out what it is. And once you put it in, then you would do something like permit only PCs listed to access my wireless. Once you save that, when the computer or the cell phone tries to log into this thing, even if they've got the password, if they are not on the MAC address list, they can't get into the thing. So that is another security thing that you want to use. Very important. What else do we have here? Advanced wireless settings. All right, a lot of this, that really doesn't matter. That's not really related to security, and that's what this video is about. Again, I said you want to change your wireless network name. Wireless broadcast, you can see the wireless broadcast, that will send out a message, that will send out a thing saying this router with this name is available, and that way you could click on it and try to log into it. Some people say disable it, you don't need to broadcast it once everything's set up. That's probably true. The hackers, the people that are trying to get into these systems, they've got sniffers, they can see what's running, even if it is not broadcasting, it's still putting out info. So, you know, do what you want with that whole thing. Let me go back to setup really quick and see what we've got in setup. Again, you want to change, what are we going to change over here? Can we change anything on this thing? No. Can't change anything on that. We've already looked at wireless, and we looked at the MAC settings. Wireless security was the WPA, and the wireless MAC filter, we just looked at that. Advanced wireless settings, not really anything that we can do with that. So we're going to go over to security now. Security, broadcast, I would keep a lot of that stuff just the way it is. You can see right over here, firewall protection disabled. Why in the world are they selling a router with this stuff disabled? Unbelievable. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Go through all these menu options. Everything's been disabled. You're buying a router to protect yourself, and everything to protect you is disabled and turned off. Access restrictions, you know, sometimes you want to use that. It just depends how much you want to get into this thing. If you've got neighbors, maybe you've got a kid in the house, maybe you're fighting with your wife and you want to limit her access. So you can go in there and change. Let's go over here. Let me see. You can change the time that it will allow them to log in. You can change the days that they can use this. In the edit list of PCs, you've got control of who's connecting to this thing. So, yeah, it really depends on if you feel you need to control access. Application and gaming. You're not going to need to deal with most of that. Chances are you're not going to have to deal with it at all. Administration. That is where you change your password, like I told you, the most important thing. Another really important thing, you see it says remote management. Now, your average person is not going to need to log into a router from home to control a router somewhere else. Chances are, if you've got a router at your mom's house and you manage her computer, you might need to log in, and so you would do remote management enabled. And I'm going to show you what happens with this. You get the enabled, and you can put the port in there, and that way it allows you to log in to the router. You could go on your computer or your internet connection and log into her IP if you knew it, and then you would get a request to put in the password. Make sure that this is disabled. That's another important thing that you want off. Now, this is interesting over here, UPnP, which is considered a huge security problem. It has been for years, and even the government came out and said disable it because it's just a huge vulnerability. This one's enabled. Sometimes you need it enabled to connect certain items. You might need it to connect a mouse or a keyboard. It's universal plug and play, so it's set up so that when you plug something in, hopefully everything will be detected. Normally, try your setup. If you can disable this, you were better off. You don't want that running. So, to recap what I said, disable UPnP if you can. Disable remote management if you can. Change your login password. Over here, you want to change the login password. Firmware update. This thing's an obsolete router now, but you want to go online and see if a new firmware update is available. If it is, it might be because there were bugs or security problems in there. So make sure that you check your firmware and see if it's updated. If you know how to put in third-party firmware, you could completely get rid of the Linksys and install something else like WWDRT. I've got a video on how to install that on my channel if you want to look that up. Okay, so that's mainly it. Check for firmware, change your password for login, set up your WPA2 for your wireless. Make sure you put in a really strong password. Don't put in something like I don't know or 123 or PASSWRD. Don't put that stuff, because these scanning programs can go in there and with brute force try millions of passwords and try to log in. So use good passwords and use good passwords on your wireless connection. Use a good password to log into the router. Like I said, UPnP, shut that off. And that's probably about it. Protect yourself. Be safe on the internet. Way too much hacking going on there. So when you get a router, go through every one of these little options and menu settings and click on everything and see how it's set. And if you don't know what it is, look it up online on Google and figure out what's going on so that you can protect yourself. Yeah, you can see that firmware update 2006. Wow, this is old. Hopefully you benefited from this video. Make sure you look at all the other awesome stuff that I've posted online. And that's it. Peace out, homie.